Welcome back, dancers. I'm Katie Groven, personal trainer, world champion dancer, and the owner of dancerfitness.com, where we help you optimize your skills using strength training. Today, we are doing part 2 of our 2-part series about healthy hips. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go back into my videos, find part 1. Here in part 1, we were talking about when you need to increase your hip flexibility and your hip mobility, what are the stretches and the exercises to do for that. Today, what we're talking about is why do our hips feel so tight all the time? We stretch and they still feel tight. The issue isn't a flexibility issue, it's a weakness in the hips. Why are our hips so weak? Because they're overused. Every time our core isn't engaged and our glutes aren't engaged, the hips go, I can help, and they take over and they do work they shouldn't be doing. So today we're going to be talking about exercises you can do to engage the core, engage the glutes, a little bit more for the hip strengthening to keep those hips strong and healthy. Alright, dancers, since we are talking about hips, I want to walk you through one of my favorite exercises that you can do with an athletic band to increase the strength of your hips and increase the strength of your psoas, which is a muscle that starts in the back, wraps through the core, and goes into the hips. And they even call this the dancer muscle because so much of our pelvic alignment is wrapped up in our stability, our control, and our movements as a dancer. So I'm going to have you grab an athletic band and you're just going to put it on your toes. You're going to lay on your back, extend your legs out to the front, lift your right leg up off the floor, pull that knee back and stop, and then extend it back out. When I'm doing this, I like to imagine that I'm driving a car, my knee is the car, and it has to go straight down the highway. It can't go side to side because that's how we'll get in an accident. And don't put the leg back down, leave it elevated, lots of energy in the toes, and eventually you're gonna start feeling that in the hip flexor. So many times, like I mentioned in the intro, is our hips just feel sort of tight, they feel weak, and it's not a tightness. We don't need to keep stretching. We need to strengthen the hip flexor. Let's do 2 more on this side. And whew, I'm feeling that. If you don't have a band, that's okay too. Our back is neutral. Let's just do 12 on this side. 1. When you're doing this with your dancers, 15 to 20, depending on their age. 4, keeping the belly nice and tight. 5, and you can even stand behind your dancers and you'll see where there's weaknesses on one side versus the other, because if there are legs going side to side, there's a weakness on that side. I've lost count, always. Welcome to Dancer Fitness, always losing count. 10, we'll call this 11, and then this will be 12. Walk you through 2 of my favorite exercises, one for glutes and one for core, to make sure that those are engaged. These are very simple. You can do these at the beginning of any of your practices. If you have a yoga block, we're going to add this one to our glute warm-up because then it's also going to fire the adductors, which are the inner thighs. So if you want a nice high passe, you want a passe that's nice and straight, and you want a straight supporting leg, gotta get those adductors. So take your yoga block if you have it. Otherwise, you can use a water bottle, a rolled up sweatshirt, right in between the knees. Don't touch the knees. It should be a little bit lower than the knees, closer to the hips. Legs are hip distance apart, and all we do is we lift, and while you're up there, squeeze. Sometimes the hips also take over for the low back. So when we're doing an exercise like this, I feel my entire trunk engaging. I feel my legs engaging. It's a great way to warm up the whole lower body. So we'll squeeze, and then drop, and up, 2, up, 3. If you don't have anything to put between your legs, you can still do these glute bridges. It's more isolating for the glutes. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now while we're down here, let's talk about my favorite exercise to engage the core, the one leg extend. Here are your options. So we want to do a core workout that's going to keep your dancers' rib cage down and their back flat so that they can engage their core while they're dancing. And remember to do those exact same things. Keep the rib cage down, keep the back flat. So here are some options for this exercise. 1, dancers can extend one leg out, pull it back in, out. If your dancers' hips do any sort of popping or clicking when they hit parallel, have them go more diagonal. If there's no problem going parallel, the closer to the ground, the better off they're going to be utilizing the core. If they cannot do this without their low back coming off the ground, because this, we don't want a hole here. We want that low back stay glued to the floor. Here's the next option. Tap, tap, and tap. So you'll go for like 20 of these when you're warming up. Now your hips, your core, and your glutes are all warmed up. It's a great way to start activating those muscles. If you want more exercises for the glutes and for the core and for the hips, go to dancerfitness.com. I'll link it below and grab any of our training plans there. You can search for the training plans and the exercises by your dancer's level, and then you can actually put which muscle groups you're trying to improve, and you have everything you need right there at your fingertips. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And remember that at dancerfitness.com, we have an exercise for that.